So now we go on to the forward reconnaissance role. And in my opinion, this is probably much harder than supply line raiding or deep strike raiding, partly because this is even more specialized than what I've been talking about so far. And I'll try to explain. So what is the forward reconnaissance role? It's a fight for information. That's what our role here is. We're here to deny the enemy reconnaissance and intelligence whilst trying to expand our own reconnaissance and intelligence to support friendly forces on the front line. All right. So the ways we go about doing this is visual scouting, very important. If you watch my two-part reconnaissance video, I explain why you have both map intel and visual scouting, how they work together, because there's pros and cons to both of them. So visual scouting is really one of the main things that we're bringing. Watchtowers, we're talking about enemy watchtowers and our own watchtowers. What we want to do in a forward reconnaissance role is to destroy enemy watchtowers whilst building up our own watchtower uh, link, really, network. That's the right word. I also will go into talking about listening kits and how to use them effectively in a frontline role. And this last part here is in the event that the game does get a little bit more developed. If you find enemy units that are operating in our way, then it's our job to deal with them, basically. Yeah, and if we're running a raid section, we'll definitely have enough firepower to deal with it. So there's no real like textbook way of me to explain all these things. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm just going to take a like sort of case example and run you through what usually I do to fulfill the forward reconnaissance role and what is possible to be done in the forward reconnaissance role. Partly because I've only been able to do this as a solo player. I haven't been able to get many people to get in on board with the program, but I have had enough experience to know that what I'm about to tell you works, right? So we start off here. Let me get one of the pens. Okay, so let's just take for just an example, right? This is the battlefield here. We're operating in this hex here, the Moors. Colonial forces are in the south and to the southwest. So we're attacking into the hex this way, and this way. All right. So what do you want to do? What you want to do at the beginning is 1 hour before the planned attack, the main operation is going to occur. You want to go in and start doing your reconnaissance runs. So you want to check out all of the bases that are in the immediate front breaching zone. Really, check these out. And then if you can, if you have the time, if you're able, you check out the ones just immediately behind them. Because chances are, and this is the way that major operations go, we don't get that far in terms of making headway into the hex. We usually just settle for the first region in any hex in any major offensive. Because is how far that we're usually going to realistically get to. So these are the main things that you want to check out first. You check out for defenses, whether they're active, what kind of defenses, what kind of extent. If you can get video recording or screenshots of the defenses and how they are arrayed, that is also very helpful to the field commander. And you want to get the ones behind just in the event that we steamroll the enemy in the initial breach. We have the opportunity to then attack even deeper and try to get a bigger penetration into the enemy lines here. So that's the reason why you want to go just one region behind all of the regions that we're trying to attack here. So that's the first thing to do. And as you're doing that, you want to take into account where the enemy watchtowers are, how many they have, roughly. You want to keep that in your mind. This is if you're approaching it from like a solo player view. This is how I approach it. You go in, you check out the first front line defenses, check out the second line defenses, and then you pull back. And what happens then after that is the second recon run, which is using the listening kits. Now, in a frontline reconnaissance role, the listening kit, the way you want to use it is you want to use it in a place where you need the information, but you also want the enemy to not know that you're getting that information, right? So basic beginner mistake is using the listening kits to get the intelligence of enemy watchtowers or observation bunkers on the front line. You do not want to set the listening kits here up on the front line. All right. Reason why. So let's just take a step back and look at what listening kits do. If you set up a listening kit 80 meters close enough to a object that gathers intelligence, that's enemy owned basically, you then get that intelligence, right? You are not denying that intelligence to the enemy. So if we set up a listening kit at this observation post here, for example, in the middle of Headstone in the moors, what we're doing there is that we're getting the intel from this observation tower, but we're not denying it to the enemy. The enemy also can still see what's going on in that radius of the observation tower. Same for the watchtowers. So if we're doing forward reconnaissance for a big operation, the watchtowers that are at the front line, we don't want to hack, we want to knock out. All right. Any intelligence gathering objects that are behind the enemy, on the other hand, that's something that we want to hack, because denying intelligence to the enemy that's behind the lines is not that important, right? Because our boys are here at the south and the west attacking here. They're not going to be in the intel range anytime soon. What we want to do is hack that so that we can find out where their logistics and their reinforcements are coming. So, for example, this observation tower here that's in the middle, if we hack that, we'll be able to find out which routes and how often and at what times, for the most part, their logistics and reinforcements are coming in to help stop the advance from the south here. That's important. That's how listening kits in a forward reconnaissance role should be used. If you try to set up the listening kits in the front here, what sometimes happens is that friendly forces like take a look at it and they seem to think, oh yeah, we got it hacked, we can use this now. Yeah, but the enemy also can still see you, and that's a bigger problem than actually us finding it, especially on the front line. You don't really need that intelligent map intel on the front line because you're on the front line. You've got your tanks, you've got your infantry, you've got all kinds of units that are all operating. This is the major attack. You have more than enough vision if you just have one guy in your unit with a pair of binos. That's all you need for the most part. It's better to knock it out. That way the enemy is in the dark for the most part. So yeah, that's the point about listening kits that I wanted to raise here. Okay, so I've reset the slide here so we can make even more annotations. So just for the example's sake, how guys are attacking from the south and the west here. Let's assume that we've already gone through the first phase of forward reconnaissance. We have scouted out the initial frontline enemy defenses, their second line of defenses, identified where their watchtowers are. Hopefully, we've had enough time to set up listening kits into intel objects that are behind the line, the front line, basically. Give us intel of where they're maneuvering their forces. Now, if once we've done all that, by this time the operation is probably already kicked off and the big offensive is now happening. All our guys are now pushing forward. What do we do now? So our job is to go onto the flanks. So basically anywhere around this point here and this point here for this example, right? It's just that different battlefields, different operations require different types of maneuvering, basically. But if we're assuming that the main attack is happening among these three lines of axis on these three arrows that I've drawn here, into the Cut, Windhills, and McNamara barrows, what we want to do is operate on the extreme flanks of all these major offenses. All right, and our job here now is to scout. If there are still enemy watchtowers in these areas, we knock them out. And what we do then is set up our own watchtower network on the flanks. And we keep on doing this, and it doesn't stop. We don't need to be tethered. We don't need to be on the immediate flank of our main forces at all times. If we find that there is no opposition or that we find that the flank is open, we can just keep on going forward, right? We don't need to stop for anybody. Just keep on going forward. Keep on knocking out enemy watchtowers and keep on setting up our own watchtowers until we find that we reach a point where we are unable to go forward, in which case then we need to pull back a little bit and remain in a holding station for the most part and provide visual scouting assistance on the flanks. But if we do find the opportunity that we can get around places and get behind the enemy, and that's what we need to do. We're now doing like a pathfinding sort of job, so that in the event that there is a unit in the main offensive that is capable of executing maneuver warfare, now they have a route where they know which is relatively safe, relatively open, and if we can, exploit and find weaknesses in the enemy flank and bring up the main combat units that are capable of maneuvering. They can now exploit the flank and get behind the enemy and deal some serious damage. So yeah, that's for the most part what forward reconnaissance is supposed to do. It's to support the main force by denying the enemy intelligence while expanding our own, and just providing options for the most part. This is what reconnaissance is supposed to do. We're not here to make the calls because we're not the commanders, we're not the field commanders, but we are in a sort of higher echelon than other units in this game for the most part. We're working more closely with the field commanders than we are with the infantrymen on the front lines. All right, intelligence needs to get sent up and distributed among the commanders and not just the frontline fellows. So yeah, hopefully I've gone more in depth into how forward reconnaissance is supposed to go and how it does work. If anybody's got any questions, you just message me on Discord and I'll address them there. So yeah, thanks for watching.